Keanu Reeves is humiliated by a real estate. The Beverly Hills open house was a showcase of opulence. Crystal chandeliers caught the afternoon sunlight, casting prismatic rainbows across Italian marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Los Angeles skyline like a living painting worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. At $28.5 million, the modernist mansion represented the pinnacle of luxury real estate, a fact that Alexandra Preston reminded every potential buyer who walked through the enormous mahogany doors. Alexandra straightened her Versace blazer and adjusted her diamond earrings. At 34, she was one of the top producing agents at Platinum Hills Realty. Her commission from this single sale would fund her planned yacht vacation through the Greek Isles. She surveyed the room with practiced precision, categorizing guests by their apparent net worth, the watches, the shoes, the subtle indicators that separated the serious buyers from the Sunday afternoon dreamers. That's when she noticed him. The man who had just entered wore faded jeans, scuffed motorcycle boots, and a simple black blazer over a plain gray t-shirt. His dark hair fell just past his shoulders, partially obscuring a face that needed a shave. He carried a motorcycle helmet under one arm and moved through the space with an unhurried grace, stopping occasionally to examine architectural details most visitors overlooked. Alexandra's smile tightened. Open houses in this price range occasionally attracted curiosity seekers, people who would never qualify for the mortgage but wanted a glimpse of how the ultra-wealthy lived. They wasted her time and distracted legitimate buyers. This man, with his casual attire and quiet demeanor, clearly belonged to that category. What happened next would leave everyone completely speechless. "Welcome to our premiere listing," Alexandra said, approaching the man with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Are you enjoying the view? It's spectacular, isn't it?" The man turned, dark eyes crinkling slightly at the corners as he smiled. "It's beautiful. The architect did an amazing job integrating the indoor and outdoor spaces." His voice was soft, with a hint of huskiness that suggested he didn't use it often. There was something vaguely familiar about him, but Alexandra couldn't place it. Perhaps he was a contractor or worked in the service industry, someone who might have helped at one of her events. "Yes, Matsumoto is renowned for his harmonious designs," she replied, subtly emphasizing the famous architect's name to establish her expertise. "Are you in the market for a new home? This neighborhood has seen a 15% appreciation in the last year alone." The man looked out over the infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the city below. "Just looking for now. I appreciate craftsmanship." Alexandra's smile remained fixed, but her attention was already drifting toward a couple who had just arrived wearing matching Rolexes. "Well, enjoy the tour. The catering is in the main kitchen, and there's a brochure with all the property details on the entrance table." As she turned to leave, the man asked, "What's your favorite feature of this house?" The question caught her off guard. Most people asked about square footage or smart home technology. "I suppose the wine cellar. It's climate-controlled and can hold over 2,000 bottles." "Interesting choice," he said with a genuine smile. "Mine would be the rooftop garden. It's a little piece of peace above all this noise." Alexandra hadn't actually been to the rooftop garden. It wasn't a selling feature she typically highlighted. "Well, everyone has their preferences," she said dismissively. "If you'll excuse me." She moved smoothly toward the Rolex couple, already calculating the potential commission. Behind her, the disheveled man continued his unhurried exploration, seemingly content to be overlooked. Chapter 2. First Impressions. The afternoon progressed with a steady stream of potential buyers touring the mansion. Alexandra expertly guided groups through the property, emphasizing the custom Italian cabinetry, the imported stone, the names of celebrities who lived nearby. Each time she passed the mysterious man, he was engaged in some quiet observation, running his fingers along a wooden banister, testing the weight of a door, standing motionless before a wall of glass. During a brief lull, she found him in the home theater, examining the custom acoustic panels with unusual interest. "Finding everything you need?" she asked, her tone suggesting he had overstayed his welcome. He turned with that same gentle smile. "This is remarkable workmanship, custom designed for this space?" "Of course," Alexandra replied. "Nothing in this home is off the shelf. The cinema system alone cost more than most homes. The man nodded thoughtfully. It's impressive, though sometimes simplicity has its own value. Alexandra couldn't help herself. I suppose that depends on your perspective. Some people are content with simplicity because luxury isn't within their reach. Instead of taking offense, the man seemed amused. Perhaps, or perhaps they've experienced both and made a conscious choice. There was something unsettling about his calm confidence. Alexandra had built her career on reading people quickly and accurately. This man didn't fit any of her usual categories. He wasn't trying to impress her with his knowledge, wasn't name-dropping connections, wasn't asking about financing options. He just was. Well, I'm not sure simple is what our target buyers are looking for, she said with a slight laugh. This home is for someone who has achieved remarkable success. What does success mean to you? He asked, and the question seemed genuinely curious rather than confrontational. Alexandra blinked. Excuse me? Success, he repeated. Everyone defines it differently. I'm interested in your perspective. She glanced at her watch, a not-so-subtle signal that this philosophical discussion wasn't the best use of her time. I think success means having the freedom to live on your own terms, to have options. This home represents that kind of achievement. The man nodded. That's a good answer. Freedom is valuable. Another couple entered the theater room, and Alexandra practically sighed with relief. Let me know if you have any questions about the property, she said, before turning her full attention to the newcomers. As she walked them through the home's features, she couldn't help noticing the mysterious man still lingering in the background. He didn't belong here, yet he moved through the space as if he had every right to be present, unbothered by her dismissal, content to observe from the margins. It irritated her in a way she couldn't quite explain. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. 2 hours into the open house, most casual visitors had departed, leaving only serious prospects. Alexandra had just finished showing a tech entrepreneur the master suite when she spotted the scruffy man again, this time in the gourmet kitchen, chatting with one of the caterers. The caterer was laughing at something he'd said, her professional demeanor momentarily forgotten. When Alexandra approached, both fell silent. Everything going well with the refreshments? Alexandra asked the caterer, pointedly ignoring the man. Yes, ma'am. We're fully stocked, the young woman replied, resuming her professional posture. Alexandra turned to the man, no longer bothering to mask her irritation. You've been here quite a while. Is there something specific you're looking for? Several nearby guests glanced over, sensing the tension in her voice. Just appreciating the details, he replied, seemingly unaffected by her tone. The architect used some interesting solutions for the lighting. It changes the mood of each space. Alexandra crossed her arms. Are you in architecture? I have some experience with design. It's a hobby. I see. And what is it you do professionally, mister? Call me Keanu, he said simply. Alexandra waited for more, a last name and occupation, but none came. The catering assistant's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly busied herself with arranging appetizers. Well, Keanu, this is an exclusive showing for qualified buyers. The property is priced at $28.5 million. Is that within your budget? Her tone made it clear she already knew the answer. A few nearby guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing the confrontation brewing. The man, Keanu, seemed to notice their discomfort more than his own. I'm not sure yet, he said, his voice remaining gentle. I'm still deciding what I'm looking for. Alexandra's patience evaporated. The day had been long, and she had spent too much time worrying about this interloper when she should have been focusing on legitimate buyers. Let me be direct, she said, lowering her voice but not her intensity. This isn't a museum. We're not here for architectural tours. If you're not seriously considering a purchase in this price range, perhaps you'd be more comfortable looking at properties that better match your circumstances. The kitchen fell silent. Even the caterers froze in place, appetizer trays suspended mid-offer. Keanu studied her face for a moment, not with anger, but with something closer to curiosity. You seem very certain about my circumstances. I've been in this business for 15 years, Alexandra replied. I can tell the difference between a serious buyer and someone who's just killing a Sunday afternoon. A silver-haired man in a tailored suit stepped forward. Excuse me, But aren't you Keanu Reeves? The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees in an instant. Alexandra felt the blood drain from her face as the man beside her smiled apologetically. Yes, he admitted with a slight nod. The silver-haired man extended his hand. I loved your work in the John Wick series. Absolutely brilliant physical performances. Thank you, Keanu replied, shaking the man's hand. The stunt team deserves most of the credit. Other guests began to murmur. Smartphones appeared in hands, and Alexandra stood frozen in horrified recognition. The disheveled man she had been dismissing and borderline insulting for the past 2 hours wasn't just any casual visitor. He was Keanu Reeves, the film star whose latest movie had grossed over $1 billion worldwide, whose face had graced countless magazine covers, whose kindness and philanthropy were legendary in Hollywood circles. And she had just suggested he couldn't afford the house. Chapter 4, The Revelation. Alexandra's mind raced through frantic calculations. Keanu Reeves' net worth was estimated in the hundreds of millions. He could buy this house 5 times over without blinking, and she had treated him like an intruder. Mr. Reeves, she began, but was interrupted by the arrival of her boss, Marcus Davidson, the owner of Platinum Hills Realty. Keanu, you made it! Marcus exclaimed, embracing the actor warmly. I was beginning to think my message got lost in the Hollywood shuffle. Traffic on Sunset was brutal, Keanu replied with an easy smile, but I wanted to see the place in person before making any decisions. Alexandra felt the floor tilt beneath her. Marcus had invited him personally. This wasn't a random visit. Keanu Reeves was a legitimate, pre-qualified buyer for the property. I see you've met Alexandra, one of our top agents, Marcus said, gesturing toward her. We've had some interesting conversations about the property, Keanu replied diplomatically, though his eyes held a glint of amusement. Marcus beamed, oblivious to the subtext. Excellent. No one knows this listing better than Alexandra. She's been absolutely instrumental in marketing it. Other guests were now openly watching the exchange, some surreptitiously taking photos with their phones. The catering assistant who had been laughing with Keanu earlier caught Alexandra's eye and quickly looked away, barely concealing a smile. Mr. Reeves, I want to apologize for my earlier comments, Alexandra said, finding her voice at last. I didn't recognize you, and I made some completely inappropriate assumptions. Keanu shook his head. No need for apologies. It's actually refreshing sometimes, being treated like anyone else. His graciousness only intensified her mortification. She had based her entire assessment on his casual appearance, never looking past the surface to the person beneath. Still, I was unprofessional and rude, she insisted. That's not how we treat anyone at Platinum Hills, regardless of who they are. Marcus glanced between them, sensing he had missed something significant. Why don't I give you the personal tour of the master wing, Keanu? The views from the primary bedroom are absolutely spectacular at sunset. Actually, Keanu said, I'd like Alexandra to continue showing me around, if that's all right. We were having an interesting discussion about what makes a house a home. All eyes turned to Alexandra, who struggled to maintain her professional composure. Of course, Mr. Reeves, I'd be happy to. As Marcus drifted away to attend to other guests, Alexandra found herself alone again with the movie star she had so thoroughly misjudged. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I'm sure Marcus would give you a much better tour. Keanu considered her for a moment. Do you know why I was interested in this house specifically? Alexandra hesitated. The architecture? The location? The rooftop garden, he replied. You mentioned earlier that you hadn't seen it. I thought perhaps we could check it out together. She felt a flush of embarrassment. He had caught her earlier lie, another moment of carelessness in an afternoon full of them. I'd like that, she said, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. As they moved toward the spiral staircase leading to the roof, Alexandra became acutely aware of how the other guests tracked their movement, how whispers followed in their wake. Her professional reputation, carefully built over 15 years, now hung by a thread, and that thread was in Keanu Reeves' hands. Chapter 5, Above It All. The rooftop garden was a hidden paradise 6 stories above Los Angeles. Lush greenery softened the clean architectural lines, creating an oasis of tranquility. Flowering jasmine perfumed the air, while a small meditation pond reflected the clouds drifting overhead. The space was designed for contemplation, a stark contrast to the showcase of wealth that comprised the rest of the house. Alexandra and Keanu stepped onto the roof just as the sun began its descent toward the Pacific, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The city stretched out before them, a vast sea of humanity wrapped in concrete and glass. "This is even better than the pictures," Keanu said softly, moving toward the eastern edge of the garden. Alexandra remained several steps behind, her mind still processing the afternoon's humiliating turn. "It's beautiful," she agreed. "I should have visited it before." "Why didn't you?" The question wasn't accusatory but curious. Alexandra considered deflecting but found herself answering honestly. "It doesn't usually help sell the house," she admitted. "Buyers in this price range are more impressed by wine cellars and home theaters than meditation gardens. I focus on what closes deals." Keanu nodded, running his fingers along the leaves of a small Japanese maple. "That makes sense from a business perspective. But aren't homes more than just business transactions?" "Of course," Alexandra said quickly, then paused. "At least they should be. Sometimes in this market, especially at this price point, it's easy to forget we're selling someone's future home, not just an investment property." They moved around the perimeter of the garden in comfortable silence. The city noise seemed distant up here, muffled by the strategic placement of plants and water features. "I keep thinking about what you asked me earlier," Alexandra said eventually, "about what success means to me." Keanu waited, giving her the space to continue. "I gave you the answer I usually give clients about freedom and options, but the truth is—" She hesitated, surprised by her own sudden candor. "The truth is I measure success by other people's perceptions. The commission, the sales rankings, the status symbols. I've been playing a role for so long that sometimes I forget it's not actually me." Keanu leaned against the glass balustrade, his focus entirely on her words. There was no judgment in his expression, only genuine interest. "We all play roles," he said. "Some are chosen for us, others we choose ourselves. The trouble begins when we forget which is which." "Is that why you dress so normally?" Alexandra asked, then winced at her phrasing. "I'm sorry, that came out wrong." Keanu laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "No, you're right. I do dress normally, because I am normal, despite what the movie posters suggest. The clothes, the possessions, they're just things. They don't define who we are." "Says the man who can afford any clothes he wants," Alexandra pointed out with a small smile. "True," he acknowledged. "Privilege makes philosophical detachment much easier, but that doesn't make the principle any less valid." A gentle breeze rustled through the garden, carrying the scent of jasmine and the distant salt of the ocean. Below them, the mansion's other guests continued their evaluations of marble and mahogany, calculating square footage and resale potential. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" Alexandra asked finally, "when I was being so difficult?" Keanu turned his gaze back to the sunset. "Would it have mattered?" "Of course it would have mattered. I wouldn't have—" She stopped, hearing her own words. "Wouldn't have what?" he prompted gently. "Treated me differently because of my name? My bank account?" Alexandra fell silent, confronted by the uncomfortable truth. She would have completely changed her behavior had she known his identity from the beginning. Every interaction would have been calculated to impress rather than dismiss. "I see your point," she conceded. "But still, most people would have said something. Perhaps. But then I wouldn't have seen the real you, would I? Just another version of the role you mentioned playing." His words weren't meant to wound, but Alexandra felt their impact nonetheless. How long had it been since she'd been genuinely herself with anyone? How many relationships, professional and personal, were built on carefully constructed personas rather than authentic connection? "For what it's worth," Keanu continued, "I think the real Alexandra is more interesting than the perfect real estate agent." Before she could respond, the door to the rooftop opened, and Marcus appeared with an anxious expression that immediately transformed into a broad smile. "There you are. Several guests were asking about you, Keanu. The Richardson family are huge fans. Their daughter has a poster of you in her dorm room at UCLA." "I'll be down in a minute," Keanu replied. "Alexandra was just showing me why this is the best feature of the house." Marcus looked between them, clearly trying to gauge if his top agent had salvaged the situation. "Take your time. The caterers are bringing out the champagne for a sunset toast." He disappeared back through the door, leaving them alone once more. "I should probably get back to work," Alexandra said reluctantly. "I've neglected the other guests long enough." Keanu nodded. "Before we go down, thank you for being honest with me. It's a rare quality in this city." "Even if that honesty came wrapped in rudeness and prejudice?" she asked with a rueful smile. "Especially then," he replied. "Perfect people are rarely honest. It's our flaws that make truth possible." As they moved toward the staircase, Alexandra felt something shift within her, a small but significant realignment, like a chiropractic adjustment of the soul. For the first time in years, she was conscious of the role she had been playing and how completely she had lost herself in the performance. And strangely enough, it had taken an actual actor to make her see it. Chapter 6. The Decision. The remainder of the open house passed in a blur for Alexandra. She moved through her professional duties mechanically, describing amenities and answering questions while her mind repeatedly returned to the rooftop conversation. Occasionally, she would catch glimpses of Keanu speaking with other guests, his demeanor unchanged regardless of who he was addressing, the same authentic presence he offered to everyone. As the event wound down and the last visitors departed, Marcus cornered her in the kitchen. "So," he demanded, barely containing his excitement. "What did he say? Is he interested?" Alexandra hesitated. "We didn't discuss specifics. He seemed to appreciate the architecture." Marcus frowned. "Alexandra, this could be the biggest sale of the quarter. Please tell me you didn't blow it with whatever happened earlier." "What do you mean?" she asked, though she already knew. "Several guests mentioned there was some tension between you two before I arrived. One couple said you practically asked him to leave." Alexandra closed her eyes briefly. Of course people had noticed, and of course they had reported back to Marcus. The luxury real estate world was smaller than most people realized. "There was a misunderstanding," she admitted. "I didn't recognize him and assumed he wasn't a serious buyer. I was inappropriate and unprofessional." Marcus's expression darkened. "Do you have any idea how hard it was to get him to come to this showing? His people almost never respond to these invitations. If we lose this sale because you decided to play gatekeeper—" "It's all right, Marcus," came Keanu's voice from the doorway. "Alexandra and I worked it out." Both realtors turned to find the actor leaning against the door frame, motorcycle helmet once again tucked under his arm. The caterers had departed, and the house was quiet save for the gentle hum of the climate control system. Marcus immediately shifted back into charm mode. "Keanu, I thought you'd left. What did you think of our little piece of paradise?" "It's a beautiful home," Keanu replied, "especially the rooftop garden." "So you're interested?" Marcus pressed, unable to contain himself. Keanu glanced at Alexandra before answering. "Actually, I've decided it's not right for me. I'm looking for something a bit different." Marcus's face fell. "Different how? Whatever you're looking for, I'm sure we can find it in our portfolio. Alexandra can put together some alternative listings right away." "It's not that," Keanu said gently. "I think I need something that feels more like a home and less like a showcase. Something with character, history, maybe even a few flaws." Alexandra felt a strange mix of disappointment and understanding. The commission would have been substantial, but she couldn't argue with his reasoning. "Of course," Marcus managed, professional enough to hide his disappointment. "We completely understand. If you change your mind or want to see other properties, you have my direct number." "Thank you for today," Keanu said. It was enlightening. As Marcus excused himself to make some calls, Alexandra found herself alone with Keanu once more. "I'm sorry if our conversation influenced your decision," she said quietly. "Don't be," he replied. "You helped me clarify what I'm actually looking for." He glanced around the pristine, empty space. "A house like this demands a performance from its owner. I do enough of that at work." Alexandra nodded, understanding completely. "Still, I hope our interaction won't give you a negative impression of the agency. Marcus is passionate about matching clients with their perfect home." "I got that impression," Keanu said with a slight smile, "though I'm more interested in your perspective now." "Mine?" "If you were helping a friend find a home, not just a client seeking status, what would you recommend?" Alexandra considered the question seriously. "I'd start by asking what matters to them. Morning light or sunset views, a kitchen for cooking or for showcasing, a garden for meditation or entertaining. Once I understood their actual life, not just their budget, I'd have a much better sense of what would make them happy. That's what I thought, Keanu said, seeming pleased by her answer. Would you be willing to be that kind of agent for me? Alexandra blinked in surprise. You want me to represent you? After how I treated you today? Especially because of today, he replied. You showed me two things I value, honesty and the capacity for growth. Both are rare qualities. She studied his face, looking for any sign of mockery or manipulation, but found only sincerity. Why would you trust me? She asked. Because you're asking that question, he said simply, and because I think you're ready to stop playing a role and start being the person you actually want to be. Alexandra felt a lump form in her throat. How had this man, this stranger, seen so clearly what she had been hiding even from herself? I would be honored to help you find a home, she said finally, a real home, not just an investment property. Keanu smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his entire face. Excellent. And maybe in the process, you'll remember what you're really selling. Not just square footage and luxury fixtures, but the space where someone will build their life. As they exchanged contact information, Alexandra felt a weight lifting, the burden of constant performance, of measuring her worth through others' perceptions, of conflating professional success with personal value. It wasn't gone completely, but for the first time in years, she could imagine a different way of being in the world. As Keanu prepared to leave, he paused at the massive front door. You know, the most meaningful spaces in my life haven't been the most expensive or the most impressive. They've been the ones where I felt I could be myself. I'll keep that in mind, Alexandra promised. I know you will, he replied. That's why I'm trusting you with this. After he departed, Alexandra stood alone in the vast, empty mansion. Its perfection suddenly seemed sterile rather than luxurious, a stage set designed for performances rather than life. The silence echoed with the absence of laughter, conversation, the mundane sounds of everyday existence that transform architecture into home. Tomorrow, she would begin the search for a house worthy of Keanu Reeves, not because of his fame or fortune, but because of his humanity. And perhaps in the process, she would rediscover her own. Chapter 7. 6 months later, the cottage in Topanga Canyon wasn't on any luxury real estate listing. Nestled among ancient oaks with a view of the mountains rather than the city, it offered privacy without isolation, character without pretension. Built in the 1970s by a sculptor whose work now graced museums worldwide, the house embraced its surroundings rather than dominating them. Alexandra's sensible sedan bumped along the unpaved driveway, kicking up dust that caught the late afternoon sunlight. 6 months ago, she would have complained about the road, worried about her car's finish. Today, she simply rolled down the windows to enjoy the scent of sage and chaparral that perfumed the air. She parked beside a familiar motorcycle and took a moment to appreciate the scene. The house renovation had been completed last week, not a gutting or modernization, but a thoughtful restoration that preserved the home's soul while updating its functionality. The original redwood exterior had been sanded and resealed, its warm tones glowing in the slanting sunlight. Native plants surrounded stone pathways, requiring minimal water while providing year-round texture and color. As she gathered her files from the passenger seat, the front door opened, and Keanu emerged, followed by an older woman Alexandra recognized as his mother. Right on time, Keanu called, waving her forward. Alexandra had changed in the months since their first meeting. Her clothing was still professional, but less rigidly formal. The designer labels remained in her closet for specific client meetings, no longer a daily armor. Even her approach to work had shifted. She'd reduced her client load by half, focusing on quality relationships rather than transaction volume. The industry had noticed. Initially, colleagues whispered that she was having a breakdown or planning to leave the profession. Then, surprisingly, her sales numbers actually improved. She closed fewer deals, but with higher satisfaction rates, leading to more referrals. Marcus had been skeptical of her rebranding until the numbers proved her right. "The place looks amazing," Alexandra said, embracing Keanu briefly before turning to his mother. "Mrs. Reeves, it's wonderful to see you again." Patricia, please, the older woman insisted, returning the hug. And thank you again for finding this special place. It's exactly what he needed. Over the past 6 months, Alexandra had spent countless hours with Keanu and occasionally his family, searching for the right property. Unlike her usual clients, he had been patient and thoughtful, willing to walk away from seemingly perfect homes because they didn't feel right. The process had been an education in priorities and perspectives. They entered the house together, moving through rooms filled with simple, beautiful furnishings. Unlike the Beverly Hills mansion with its museum-like perfection, this home invited touch and use. Books filled the shelves, musical instruments waited to be played, and the kitchen showed evidence of actual cooking. "I brought the final paperwork," Alexandra said, setting her portfolio on the reclaimed wood dining table. "Once you sign, it's officially yours." "I thought we closed last week," Keanu said, looking confused. "The house, yes. This is for the adjacent 5 acres," Alexandra explained. "The conservation easement went through. The land will remain undeveloped permanently, protecting your privacy and the local ecosystem." Keanu's face brightened. "That's wonderful news. The family was concerned about selling after holding it for generations. They're thrilled it's going to someone who values it for itself, not as a development opportunity," Alexandra assured him. Plus, the tax benefits of the conservation status made the numbers work for everyone. As Keanu reviewed the documents, Patricia touched Alexandra's arm gently. "Would you help me in the kitchen? I've made tea." The kitchen, with its substantial butcher block islands and commercial-grade appliances chosen for function rather than status, had become the heart of the home even before Keanu had fully moved in. As Patricia prepared a tray of tea and homemade cookies, Alexandra leaned against the counter, observing the easy confidence of a woman who had raised her son to value substance over appearance. "He seems at peace here," Patricia commented, glancing toward the dining room where Keanu was absorbed in the paperwork. "I think he is," Alexandra agreed. "It suits him better than any of the showpieces we looked at." Patricia smiled knowingly. "He told me about your first meeting, how you didn't recognize him and practically threw him out of the open house." Alexandra winced. "Not my finest professional moment." "On the contrary," Patricia said, her voice gentle but firm. "He said it was refreshingly honest. Do you know how rarely people respond to him as a person rather than a celebrity? Still, I made assumptions based on appearance. That's never acceptable." "True," Patricia acknowledged, "but you learned from it. That's the difference between a mistake and a character flaw." They carried the tea into the dining room just as Keanu finished signing the documents. Through the wide windows, the canyon was turning golden in the late afternoon light, shadows lengthening across the rugged landscape. "That's it," he said, closing the folder. "Everything's official." "Congratulations on your new property," Alexandra said formally, then broke into a genuine smile. "Though I think this land already recognized you as its caretaker long before the paperwork caught up." They moved to the wide porch that wrapped around the house, settling into comfortable chairs with their tea. Below them, the canyon deepened into shades of purple as the sun descended toward the distant ocean. "I have something for both of you," Keanu said, disappearing briefly into the house. He returned with 2 small wooden boxes, hand-carved from what appeared to be reclaimed redwood. "These are beautiful," Patricia murmured, running her fingers over the smooth surface of her box. "A local artisan makes them from fallen trees on his property," Keanu explained. "Each one is unique." Alexandra opened her box to find a simple silver key inside. "It's a spare," Keanu explained. "Not that I expect you to need it professionally anymore, but because you're always welcome here. Without you, I might still be looking at soulless mansions with infinity pools. Or avoiding real estate agents altogether after that first encounter," Alexandra added with a self-deprecating smile. "That day changed something for me too," she continued more seriously. "I've spent my career helping people buy houses while completely forgetting what makes them homes. You reminded me that my job isn't just about transactions, it's about helping people find where they belong." Patricia reached over to squeeze her hand. "That's a rare insight in your industry, my dear." "In any industry," Keanu added. "We all get caught up in surfaces and forget to look deeper." As darkness settled over the canyon and the first stars appeared above the mountains, Alexandra felt a profound sense of rightness. Her professional humiliation had become the catalyst for authentic change, not just in how she approached her work, but in how she moved through the world. The man she had dismissed based on appearances had become not just a client, but a friend, someone whose perspective had altered her own. And this house, so different from the properties she typically represented, had reminded her of what truly mattered in creating a home. "Will you stay for dinner?" Patricia asked as the evening cooled. "I've made far too much food for just the two of us." "I'd like that," Alexandra replied, feeling no need to check her calendar or make excuses about other commitments. As they moved back inside, the cottage glowed with warmth and welcome, not from crystal chandeliers or designer furnishings, but from the authentic life already beginning to fill its spaces. It was, Alexandra realized, exactly what a home should be. Not a showcase, but a sanctuary. Not a statement, but a story. And her own story was still being written, one authentic choice at a time. Epilogue. The real estate 1 year after Keanu moved into the Topanga Canyon cottage, Alexandra sat across from Marcus in the sleek conference room of Platinum Hills Realty. Between them lay a portfolio containing her latest performance metrics. "I don't understand how you're doing this," Marcus said, shaking his head in bewilderment. "You've cut your listings by 60%, you're turning down high-commission properties left and right, and somehow your annual numbers are better than ever." Alexandra smiled. "It turns out finding people the right home, not just the most expensive one, leads to a lot of referrals." "The Reeves effect," Marcus muttered, using the term he'd coined months ago when her approach first began showing results. "Something